Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to tonight's evening edition of The Goldie Show. I'm Goldie Gamari, former Canadian politician, geopolitical analyst, and of course, human rights activist when it comes to all things Iran, Islamic terrorism, the Middle East, and of course, the rest of the world. Before we begin, as always, let me know where you are tuning in from in the live stream chat, or if you're watching this video afterwards, let me know in the comments as well. As you can see, I'm not in my usual place. I'm currently on the road. However, as long as I have my laptop and an internet connection, I will be online sharing all of the latest news and analysis with all of you. So we are very low tech for the next couple of weeks, let's say, until I get back to my usual place. But of course, no matter where I go, I always have my Lion and Sun flag with me to keep me company, and it makes an amazing impromptu backdrop when I need it. So I'm going to explain to you the format of the Goldie Show, and then we're going to dive right in because, of course, my time is limited and we have a lot of information to get through tonight. So the way that the Goldie Show is going to work is I will give you, we'll start off with what's happening on the American side. And then we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into what's happening on the Islamic regime side when it comes to the conflict between the United States and the Islamic regime. And then afterwards, I'm going to give you my final analysis. I'm also going to do a little bit of breaking news and updates as well as we kind of go through. And then, of course, when I'm done with my analysis, we'll get to your questions and comments and super chats at the end of the live stream. So let's just dive right in because again, I am on limited time, but I do want to share a lot of info with you because things are escalating. They're escalating. And, I spoke yesterday about the American soldiers who had lost their lives at the hands of the terrorist and illegitimate Islamic regime. And basically, what I said is that I think that this is going to um, enrage President Trump. And I think that the Islamic regime, um, they're basically going scorched earth. And then, of course, we got some incredibly, oops, wait, what's going on? Sorry, there was like some random noise here. Sorry, one of my tabs was making some random noise. Sorry, guys. I have no idea what's going on. My tabs are being all weird, and I'm just getting like this random sound, random noise from somewhere. I have no idea where it's coming from. Okay, I think it stopped. All right. Okay. It stopped. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, it was just like it was literally playing in no, it came again. Okay. Oh, wait. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on. Sorry, guys. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I literally had to just like shut down my Chrome and I just have to restart it. I'm so sorry. No, 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 it's not that. It's just some weird glitch or something. And I was literally hearing like the FIFA announcer announcing that Spain has won the FIFA World Cup, even when I was like trying to like switch between the Google Chrome tabs. So it wasn't being played on the screen. It was playing it was like I could hear it in my earbuds. So I'm like, where is this random sound coming from? It was just like the speaker announcing like FIFA or something. I don't know. It was very bizarre. I don't know, some sort of weird glitch. No idea where it came from. So let me just reopen all of my bookmarks and tabs once again that I had ready to go. See, guys, like we're literally super low tech based here. Okay. Um, but what I want to start off with was, of course, sorry, let me pull this up again. I wanted to start off with, of course, the very sad news about the two American soldiers who have lost their lives at the hands of the Islamic regime. Tyler James Feehan was 25, and Isabella Gonzalez was only 19 years old. And that one really breaks my heart, right? Because like 19 years old, she was barely an adult. Like, I mean, 19, that's still a baby, right? Like she's still a baby, guys. And this is really upsetting. This is really upsetting. And for many of us, this is very similar to um, when the Islamic regime murders Iranian children, right? Like it's the exact same thing. So, I mean, we know exactly what you are all going through, and I just want to give my condolences to you all, right? Like she had barely started her life. She had barely started her life, okay?
This is Isabel Gonzalez. She was 19 years old, and on July 17th, in Jordan, she was one of two of the service members whose lives were taken while serving the United States Army. She graduated from Hebron High School. She was part of the class of 2025. At the young age of 19, Isabella showed more bravery than 99% of this world's population. She saved more lives at 19 than I would say 98% do by the time they reach 90. She enthusiastically, with pride, chose to be exactly where she was and chose to do exactly what she was doing. Now, I never had the honor of meeting this incredible person, but I do have the opportunity of making sure we never forget her name. And we all are aware of the sacrifice she and her family have made. Thank you, Isabella Gonzalez, for serving your country and for serving us the way you did. I'm going to ask that you please share this video and please remember who Isabella is and what she did.
She was only 19, and this reminds me of 19-year-old Diana Bahadur. She was murdered by the Islamic regime as well, right? This is 19-year-old Diana. She was murdered by the Islamic regime on January 8 and 9. So let me just, I think the music is probably copyrighted. Let me see. Yeah, I think the music is copyrighted, so I'm just gonna play this. Let me see if I can find some music or something, but you know what? What do I have here? Sorry, guys. What do I have? You know what? Let me do this one. So, from our Diana to your Isabella, we send our condolences, not just for Isabella's loss, but for the 3 U.S. servicemen that were murdered by the Islamic regime. And of course, everyone who's been a victim of the Islamic regime. So, we share your pain, we share your suffering because we've experienced it ourselves as well. So, we know exactly what you're going through, and we honor Isabella and all of the fallen U.S. soldiers just as much as we honor and mourn our own fallen freedom fighters. So, thank you for making the ultimate sacrifice. But, I think the fact that she was, again, and I don't mean this disrespectfully when I say she was a baby, but she was like, she had barely become an adult. Like, she hadn't even started her life yet. She hadn't even started her life, and it was taken away by this cruel and evil Muslim Nazi dictatorship, and her life was stolen, and um, nothing can ever bring her back, right? Nothing can ever bring her back. This is why we call the Islamic regime the child killing regime, because they're literally murdering our children. They're murdering our youth, right? She had barely lived her life. She had barely lived her life, and she's already been taken away. And so I think that, especially, I mean, President Trump, every single loss, right? Every single loss deeply affects President Trump. But given that Diana was only 19, I think that this particular story has impacted him, and affected him even more. And that's because, President Trump has grandchildren that are around her age, right? President Trump has grandchildren around Isabella's age. So let's go to some of the posts that President Trump has put up since yesterday. So on Truth Social, he shared a message from U.S. Central Command. At 2 p.m. Eastern today, U.S. forces began conducting a new wave of strikes against Iran for the sixth consecutive night to further degrade Iranian military capabilities. Okay, so that was the first one, and then he continues and he shares. Now, I'm not going to get into the curly-haired woman. That's irrelevant. Whatever. But President Trump shared a post. Okay, this is important, guys. This is important. So, while the world watches the war, the Islamic Republic of Iran hanged a 19-year-old boy today. And remember, I spoke about Irfan yesterday. His name is Irfan Isfandiari, and he was his parents' only child. He did not kill anyone. He did not carry a weapon. His crime, according to the Islamic Republic, was opening a door, sheltering protesters who were running from security forces. That was enough to send him to the gallows. Irfan was one of 12 young men in the Ali Khani Square case in Isfahan, arrested during the January 2026 uprising. Yesterday, all 12 were moved to quarantine. Today, the Islamic Republic hanged him. This is a government that is so terrified of a generation that refuses to be silent that it executes teenagers for the act of compassion. Say his name, because the regime is already trying to erase him, because his mother and father are left with nothing, not even the right to grieve loudly. And this was 18-year-old Irfan. And the Islamic regime hanged him yesterday. So President Trump shared this post, okay? President Trump shared this post about the Islamic regime murdering Iranians on his Truth Social. And then afterwards, we have this, explosive message. Every time Iran, he obviously means the Islamic regime. Every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over. This directive has been passed on to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Daniel Kaine, and every leader in the military, President Donald J. Trump. Then he continues. And this kind of gets into, him dealing with, I guess, Zohran Mamdani and the Durkas. But this is interesting. Benjamin Netanyahu, and by the way, like this whole Mamdani thing, like the guy's literally like he's infiltrated American society, right? Like that's what the jihadis do. They immigrate to your countries. They take advantage of your rights and freedoms to become citizens, and then as soon as they become citizens, they start destroying your country from within like a cancer, right? So it's like this, it's like mold or I don't know, rot or something, right? Like it comes, it like infests and then it starts like destroying from the inside. Yeah, that's what these people do. And the fact that the mayor of New York thinks he actually has the jurisdiction to arrest a foreign dignitary. And remember, America is not actually a signatory to the Rome Statute, right? America is not bound by the terms of the ICC, the International Court of Justice, right? Because again, United Nations is garbage, and all their institutions are pretty much garbage, right? So first of all, like the guy, like this jihadi communist infiltrator, jihadi Muslim communist infiltrator. First of all, he's so like inbred and stupid that he doesn't even understand that the mayor has, no jurisdiction over foreign dignitaries. Second of all, he's too stupid to understand that America is not even a signatory to the Rome Statute, which means that the, arrest warrant put out by the way, the arrest warrant was put out by the prosecutor of the ICC, who happens to be a Pakistani who's infiltrated the United Kingdom. And that Pakistani, right, is also charged with like sexual assault or something, right? So, take that for what it's worth. So the ICC prosecutor who put out the arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu is a Pakistani Muslim. And remember, Pakistan does not actually recognize the state of Israel, right? Even though Pakistan is like one of the fakest countries in the world, aside from like Bangladesh, because they both belong to India. Pakistan doesn't even recognize the state of Israel. So, maybe there is bias there. Would you think that maybe the Pakistani sex offender who doesn't recognize the state of Israel, putting out an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, and then on top of that, you have the commie Durka jihadi mayor of New York City who thinks that he has the jurisdiction to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu, even though, first of all, he doesn't, and second of all, America is not even a party to the Rome Statute, so it's not even bound by whatever garbage nonsense the ICC puts out there, right? Wait, what's going on here? Is there? Yeah, so someone's asking me if I'm Muslim. Kind of rude to ask people what their religion is, right? But I mean, if you're new to the show, get settled in, I guess. So I don't know what exactly about my appearance or my, like my necklace or anything like that makes you think I'm Muslim. But anyways, I digress. By the way, guys, I had a really delicious beer today. It was actually really good. So, there you go. I'm definitely enjoying my craft beer tour. I have to say that, when I can. Anyways, guys, so going back to the topic here. So now that like the Kami Memdani, for some reason, like he thinks and again, like Memdani, he's also like a 12er Shia, right? So Memdani is part of a religious cult that views Khomeini as their leader, okay? So ask yourself, is Mamdani actually loyal to the United States, or is he loyal to Khomeini? Because anyone who's a 12er Shia, they're loyal to Khomeini. Keep that in mind, okay? Keep that in mind. Anyways, so President Trump is writing here, Benjamin Netanyahu will not be arrested in any way, shape, or form while in the United States of America. He is fighting against the Islamic Republic of Iran. I love this. See, so President Trump, he's distinguishing between Iran, right, the freedom-fighting Iranian people who are fighting against the Muslim occupation, versus the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Muslim Nazis, right? He is fighting against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which recently killed 52,000 innocent protesters and has spent the last 47 years killing American soldiers and others. So again, right, President Trump here, he's admitting, or not admitting, he's acknowledging that at least 52,000 innocent protesters have been killed on January 8 and 9. And I shared footage and I spoke about that on Iran Revolution Live earlier today. And and the Islamic regime has spent the last 47 years killing American soldiers and others. The only ones that should be arrested are the people that led Iran into this unprecedented spiral of death and destruction, something that should have been dealt with years ago by previous presidents. President Donald J. Trump. And then he continues and he shares this. Great words of wisdom from highly respected James Carafano. Thank you, James. Our position in the region is the strongest that it's been since the end of World War II. We have been dealing with this from Jimmy Carter, right? So even President Trump, guys, even President Trump is acknowledging that Jimmy Carter and the Democrats were one of the primary reasons why the Islamic regime came to power. And if you want to learn more about the history behind the 1979 Islamic coup d'etat and how Jimmy Carter was involved, you need to watch my documentary watch parties on this. So Let me just give you one example of the most recent one. And where was it? Was it? I think it might be here. Let me just pull it up so that I can share this with you. Here we go. So if you go, so one of the playlists that I have on my YouTube channel is called Iranians Rate Documentaries About Iran. Okay. And if you want to get sort of like the most recent ones, it's literally the final one. So I talk about Khomeini's 1989 funeral in two parts, but I also do a deep dive into the 1979 Islamic coup d'etat, Jimmy Carter and the Democrats, and how they were also, sort of involved with that. So that's what President Trump is referring to here, right? We have been dealing with this from Jimmy Carter because it was Jimmy Carter and the Democrats who brought in the Muslim Nazis. Since the days of Jimmy Carter, we have never had a position in the region this strong to create a better future for the region, and then that means a safer America. And I think that this is the price we are paying. Trust me, it's going to pay off for decades. So, again, in those documentary watch parties, if you remember, I've also shared footage from the relationship that Iran and the United States had prior to 1979. And if you recall, there's actually one video, and this is actually this is like an American video. Okay, so um, uh, um, let's see if I can find what it's called again. Um, what was it called again? Here we go. Here we go. Guys, so I'm just going to share this very, very briefly, okay? I've already shared this video several times, but so this is literally an American video. Okay, so this is an American documentary from 1962, and it's called Firm Alliance, United States and Iran. Okay, and this is actually video footage produced by, Americans of the time when in 1962, the Shah of Iran visited JFK, and it was aired on C-SPAN, American History TV, and the video is literally called A Firm Alliance. Okay.
In the United States Capitol in Washington, members of Congress hear the Shah speak of the friendship, respect, and firm alliance that exists between the people of Iran and the United States.
Yeah. So the Shah of Iran at the time, Shahanshah Aryamer, spoke at the US Congress. Okay. So and I'll play his speech for you in a moment, but this is important for context, right? So when President Trump is writing, we have been dealing with this from Jimmy Carter. That's because before Jimmy Carter helped the Islamic regime come to power in 1979, the United States and America had a firm alliance. Okay. Since the days of Jimmy Carter, we have never had a position in the region this strong to create a better future for the region. Okay. So this is what, and this is just like a 2-minute clip from the full documentary, but like this is the relationship that the United States and Iran had before Jimmy Carter brought in the Ayatollahs and the Muslim Nazis. Okay, so just watch this.
In the United States Capitol in Washington, members of Congress hear the Shah speak of the friendship, respect, and firm alliance that exists between the people of Iran and the United States.
America gave us generous and valuable financial and military assistance, thus greatly facilitating our task in the implementation of our vast economic and general development and security plans, for which I wish to express to you our deep gratitude and sincerest thanks. We are absolutely certain that the freedom and security of peoples around the world, as well as your own security, depend upon the will and determination of the American people to continue with the struggle without flagging. We hope that you decide, as you have in the past, that it is worthwhile. But I can assure you that whatever your decision may be, that the people of Iran have not maintained their freedom for 2,500 years in order to now surrender.
At the White House, residence of American presidents, the Shah and Secretary of State Rusk joined President Kennedy and Defense Secretary McNamara to discuss the collective security arrangements between the two nations. President Kennedy and the Shah agree on the value of continued assistance to Iran's economic development program.
There you go. So just a brief little trip to history. So now you guys have some context. When President Trump is saying that all of this began with Jimmy Carter, it's because Jimmy Carter stabbed the Shah in the back and decided to support the Muslim Nazi pedophile who literally wrote a book about, how it's okay to sodomize infant girls. Okay, that's who Jimmy Carter supported instead of the Shah. Okay. Anyways, so now that gives you some historical context, right? Because before 1979, Iran and the United States were allies. It was only when the Islamic regime, the Muslim Nazis, took over that they started their death to America and their garbage jihad nonsense against, the states, and of course, murdering Americans, murdering Iranians, and spreading terrorism and Islamic terrorism around the world. So now let's watch this video clip. Excuse me. Let's watch this clip that President Trump has posted on his Truth Social, because as you know, when President Trump posts something, especially links to news media, that means he wants us to watch and pay attention.
Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano, 25 years in the U.S. military as in Army, a veteran and senior counselor now to the Heritage Foundation president. You joined me live recently when we were broadcasting just ahead of the 4th of July and the tall ships were starting to come in on the Hudson River. And that's really when I learned a lot about your military strategy, more than I had ever known. So I'm so grateful to you to join us on this day. This war is now ratcheted up. We could see it coming. The president promised if Iran didn't come to the deal or come to the table to do a deal. How do you categorize this day?
Yeah. So first I would go back to something I said when we were together before the 4th of July, which was, and people say, well, why does the president just go in and finish it? Why don't we do more of this? And because the president doesn't want to waste lives. I mean, we tragically lost some American in uniform because they're always at risk. So here's the good news, which is the strikes were relatively limited. The way they did this was relatively novel, that they had a successful strike. I'm pretty sure the U.S. is going to adjust for that, so they won't be able to do that again. And what's really important is all of our regional allies are even more with us than ever. So, and that's, I think, really important. And then the most important thing is look, I mean, we went from saying the big deal is the Iranians can close the strait to then be saying, well, they can interdict the strait. And now they're rapidly losing the capacity to do that. So the longer they fight this war, the worse off they are. And the most important thing is, look at what a hole they're digging themselves in. Now they've got to rebuild bridges, power plants, all their military. I mean, to get back to where they were a year ago, that is just going to take forever.
Look, I have a couple of questions that just have to do with getting the job done in whatever amount of time it would take. And everybody roots for quickly. I'm certain we don't want to see any loss of life. I mean, the president says that on all sides. We don't want any loss of life, especially not our own as American citizens. But you talk about the Gulf and everybody being on our sides in terms of
Persian Gulf.
the Abraham Accords, got a lot of partners now, friends in the region. When they take incoming, though, it's a lot different than us. Their militaries are not our military. And our protection mission just got bigger.
Right. And we are seeing a rapidly increasing capacity in the region for countries to protect themselves. And what's really interesting is working with Israel and seeing Israeli capabilities being brought to the table. But again, a lot of this is there's a much diminished capacity on the part of the Iranians to do anything. This has enormous long-term consequences. These people are never, as long as that regime is there, they are never going to trust this regime again. So these countries will work together in the future to build up deterrence against future Iranian threats. I'm really sure of that.
Yeah, and that took me right to my second question. You did it. We know we can't trust them. Like, we know. They've shown us many times who they really are. Now everybody in the region says, well, wait a minute, we don't
you can't trust them. That's what we Iranians, we have been saying to you from the beginning. You can't trust them. You can never trust the Muslim Nazi occupiers, because if their lips are moving, they're lying. Don't trust them. Never, ever trust them.
want to sink money and time and resources into something that's also not going to bear fruit. Who do you deal with on the ground in Iran?
Well, I don't know. The important thing is you deal with the things you can deal with. What we can do is really build up the deterrent force against that. So, for example, we are in Iraq in a way that we have not been since the early days of the war. We have an Iraqi government which is cooperating with the United States more than ever. We just sealed a huge oil deal with them to bring more resiliency to the oil industry in the region. They are working to kick the Iranian militias, diminish them and get them out of the country. This was unthinkable 4 or 5 years ago. So I know people are fixated by the losses, which are terrible, and how long this is take, but our position in the region is the strongest that it's been since the end of World War II. I mean, we have been dealing with this from Jimmy Carter. Since the days of Jimmy Carter, we have never had a position in the region this strong to create a better future for the region. And then that means less trouble for us, less work for us, safe for America. And I just think that this is the price we are paying. Trust me, it is going to pay off for decades.
An Iranian-American academic identified as a regime mouthpiece says that Tehran, the capital of Iran, wants U.S. troops on the ground in Iran. Watch this.
Oh my
focus
God.
of Iranian strikes.
Oh my God. It's Marandi. Remember, guys? Remember what I did to him on Piers Morgan? Remember? Like, this guy's literally a traitor, okay? Like, I don't know, man. I know, like, apparently he was born in the United States. You guys need to, like, arrest him and, like, put him in Guantanamo Bay and, like just lock up the key, right? Like, guys, he is literally a mouthpiece for the Islamic regime. And he is American because he was born in the United States. So, like, you literally need to, like, throw him in jail, like, lock him up and, like toss away the key, right?
Are on Bahrain.
Identified as a regime mouthpiece says that Tehran, the capital of Iran, wants U.S. troops on the ground in Iran. Watch this.
The focus of Iranian strikes are on Bahrain and Kuwait, and that's because that's where most of the American assets have been placed for a ground invasion. The Iranians, we discussed this during the 40-day war before on your show when I said that the Iranians actually want the Americans to carry out a land invasion. And the same is true now, because they felt that if there was a land invasion, they would win.
Oh no. Oh no, wait, guys, did he actually say that? So now, Morandi is basically saying that the Islamic regime wants a land invasion because they feel like they will win. So not only is that completely delusional, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Now, I haven't watched this full Fox News clip yet because I've been on the road, but I'm going to give you my initial thoughts on this. If the Islamic regime is now putting out this messaging that, oh, we want the Americans to do a land invasion because we're going to beat them, right? I have a feeling that they may have received some sort of intel which is making them think that the Americans are preparing for a land invasion. Okay. Now, I don't know if that's what the United States is actually going to be doing or not, right? Like, I'm not a military strategist, so I have literally no idea what's going on. This is not reverse psychology, guys. So this is not reverse psychology. What is happening here is basically what the Islamic regime is trying to do is they're trying to say, like, it's almost like they're putting the cart before the horse. Okay, so if they're putting out this line about how the Islamic regime wants the United States to do a land invasion. Okay, first of all, because they could beat the United States. I mean, that's utter nonsense, right? Like, we all know that. Literally, like, not in a million years could the Islamic regime beat the Americans. We all know that. Okay, but what they're trying to do with this, okay, this is what I think. This is what I think. They must have received some sort of intel. Now, whether that intel is reliable or not, that's something else, right? We don't know. We don't know that. We don't know what the military strategy is. But whether or not that intel is reliable, it has spooked the Islamic regime enough that I believe they're now trying to, beat America at their own game by putting the cart before the horse and saying, "Oh yeah, we want you to come. We're ready for you." They're hoping that this will somehow scare the Americans into not doing a land invasion if that's what they're planning. Because what's going to happen down the road is that, let's say, if a land invasion has never been a part of the military plan, then the Islamic regime, God forbid if they survive, right? They're going to come out and say, see, America was planning a land invasion, but we went out and we openly warned them and said, we're going to beat you. And they got scared and they ran away. Okay, so this is like a Hail Mary attempt. Are you guys following along? Because I know this logic, it does sound a little crazy, right? But again, like this is how the Islamic regime thinks and operates. So let me know in the chat if you're following along with this logic. If not, I can walk through it again. But like they're basically trying, like, they're trying to psych you out. Okay, so you guys get it. Okay, perfect. So yeah, so they're trying to, I guess, psych you guys out in a weird way. But if this is the narrative they're putting out, then that means they must have received some sort of indications that the Americans are trying to do a land invasion. Now, here's the thing. Here's what we don't know. Okay, what we don't know is whether or not the intel they have received about America getting ready to do a land invasion is accurate or not. And do you know why I say that? Because remember, the United States purposely gave incorrect information to Khamenei on February 27, right? If you recall, Khamenei, after the 12-day war between Israel and the IRGC last summer, and, we're always grateful to Israel for that. I'm Israel Chai. God bless the IDF. But if you recall, after the 12-day conflict, Khamenei was so scared that he immediately went underground. Okay, that's this one here, the one that's now dead, Khabar Margish. He immediately went underground, and pretty much from the end of that 12-day conflict up until February 27, he was underground. Okay, on February 27, he received some intel, right? Some leaked intel from the Americans that the Americans were not planning for, the Americans were 100% super duper, definitely not planning on attacking the Islamic regime that weekend. The Americans were taking a break. The Americans were, going to focus on something else, right? So the Islamic regime received intel, American intel, that no strikes were going to happen. So based on that American intel, Khamenei was like, okay, well, since I'm super duper 100% convinced that the Americans are not going to attack this weekend, I'm going to come out of my bunker and I'm going to have a meeting with my top IRGC commanders, all 30 or 40 of them. And so pretty much as soon as he came out of his bunker and that meeting started, that's when the United States and Israel went in. And it was, I believe it was like 9:30 a.m. Local time, Saturday morning. And Khamenei and his top advisors were sent to hell. That's because the Islamic regime had made certain decisions based on false intel that they had received. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. You have to remember that example. So now, and what a beautiful day that was. That was just we were all in shock in like a very good way, right? So God bless America. I'm Israel Chai for that. We'll forever be grateful. So now, going back to this, this is why I'm saying I don't know if this intel about a potential land invasion is accurate intel or if it's inaccurate, okay? We won't know until, we won't know until we know, basically, right? But what I can tell you is that the United States obviously has a very, very good way of dealing with the Islamic regime, and the Islamic regime's freaking out, right? They're freaking out because they don't know if this intel about a possible land invasion is accurate or not. And so this is why, right? So I just want to point that out. So again, I mean, a land invasion could very well happen, right? I don't know. I'm not a military strategist. But what I'm saying here is that the fact that the Islamic regime is now claiming that if a land invasion happens, they can beat the Americans, they're freaking out and they're hoping that by putting the cart before the horse, that this is going to somehow disrupt or ruin the American military plans, whatever they might be, even though, of course, the United States is essentially using taqiyya, right? Like they're, the Islamic regime lies, okay? So the Islamic regime engages in taqiyya, and the United States is now using that same strategy against the Muslim Nazis, right? And I think that is absolutely fantastic and very, very fitting. So there you go. So this is why this guy is making this insane statement about how like Iran wants a land invasion because they feel they could win.
Want the Americans to carry out a land invasion. And the same is true now because they felt that we discussed this during the 40-day war before on your show when I said that the Iranians actually want the Americans to carry out a land invasion. And the same is true now, because they felt that if there was a land invasion, they would win.
Yeah, okay.
My dad said one of the lessons that you learn from wars like Vietnam is that some people just like to fight. And while the communists in that war, my dad would say, may have had a vision, the one that we were clear-eyed on was they wanted to kill and they wanted to fight, which is why it was so hard. Your take on what was just said in that clip?
Yeah, you don't fight the war of the enemy once, right? This is a country that's the size of Texas. We could put every American in uniform in the middle of Iran, and we could not control that country. So the idea that we're going to go invade this thing, that's just nuts. We're not going to fight them on their terms. That's just stupid. And then when they try to bring the fight to us like they have, what do they get in return? They get absolutely decimated. So I don't see this administration changing course. You know, again, we've talked about regime change. It brings all other kinds of challenges and things. And the point is we don't know the dollar figure or the life figure that, you know, what would it take to get to regime change? We don't know that. So that's, I don't think, a credible goal for the U.S. But the U.S. can do what it's doing now, which is completely eliminating their capacity to interdict the straits. They've taken nuclear weapons off the table. The country can't build a nuclear weapon. Their arsenals are shadow. As a matter of fact, these attacks show, actually, that Iran cannot threaten the reign of death, that it literally could have threatened a country with a year ago. And what have we heard? What have we heard from the surrogates, the Hamas, Hezbollah, and everybody else? I mean, they're just sitting on their hands, and which is exactly what we want. So I think we're in good shape.
One small correction there. Iran is not the size of Texas. I wanted to, right? So if I pull up my trusty map, okay? Iran is like at least like twice the size, maybe, I don't know, 3 times the size of Texas, right? Like Iran is pretty big. So I would say at least twice the size of Texas. So just wanted to give you guys a bit of a comparison there, so that, like, yeah. So it's much bigger. So just wanted to clarify that. The other part, where he talks about how the United States, the goal isn't regime change. I agree, because regime change is a responsibility of the Iranian people. However, the United States can degrade the Islamic regime to a point where, when the Iranian people rise up to reclaim the country, the Islamic regime can't drive in with 100 military-grade machine guns and fire 50 caliber bullets into crowds of unarmed people at 600 rounds per minute. So there are ways of helping without doing the regime change itself, because ultimately regime change is the responsibility of the Iranian people. So that was the other post from President Trump. And then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there is one more. I'm just going to my bookmarks here. So there's one more from, wait, where'd my bookmarks go? Am I doing this wrong? Okay, no, that was the last one. Okay, so that was the last bookmark from President Trump. Okay, next, I want to go to some of the statements that President Trump has made. This is from Rapid Response. This is from yesterday.
Well, we feel very badly, but those great people, those great patriots were out there fighting that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran has been very, very badly damaged. They've lost everything almost militarily. They've got very little left. They've got some missiles. They've got some drones. They've got some manufacturing ability, not much. We control the strait. They don't control anything. So we'll see what happens. But we hit them very hard again tonight. And we did that in honor of the probably 3. It's probably 3 as opposed to 2 great patriots. Well, we feel very badly, but those great people,
So President Trump confirming that he's hitting the Islamic regime even harder, even harder. Guys, when the ceasefire happened and, President Trump was all of a sudden talking about like, oh, like peace or whatever, that a lot of people were freaking out. They were like, what is Trump doing? And I was like, guys, there's a plan here. There's a plan. Okay. Now, of course, as Iranians, because we're dealing with a Muslim Nazi occupation that's murdering us every day, of course, for us, there's an urgent humanitarian aspect to this, right? And on Iran Revolution Live, I focus on the Iranian people, on the humanitarian aspect, and we do sort of a deep dive so that you guys can understand the Iranian perspective. However, on the Goldie Show, this is, of course, geopolitical analysis. So, I take an objective look at all of this and I put my personal emotions and, my personal bias aside. And I just, share with you the news and, the analysis and how I see all of this playing out, using my experience as a former politician. So, what I think is happening here is that this ceasefire, it was really just for President Trump to, how do I explain this? So, when the United States and Israel first started, okay, I mean this was like the first open conflict between the United States and the Islamic regime. So, the United States didn't really know what to expect, okay? Not in terms of military equipment, right? But in terms of, the behavior of the Islamic regime, okay? So, the United States didn't know what to expect when it comes to how the Islamic regime would react, how they would respond, right? What they would do, what they would not do, okay? Because no one has ever directly engaged with these, insane Muslim Nazi terrorists who literally yell Allahu Akbar while they're murdering 54,000 innocent unarmed Iranians, okay? So, what I think was really happening is the first round was for the United States to figure out the Islamic regime's strategy, to figure out how they operate, and also for them to eliminate the top leadership and the key players, right? Because remember, when you look at our boom boom bingo sheet, okay, there are a lot of grays on this boom boom bingo sheet, right? Like literally all the top people on the boom boom bingo sheet, well, most of them anyway, have been already exterminated in the first round of the conflict. And like it's become so bad that they're literally bringing like retired insane IRGC people out of retirement because so many IRGC terrorists have been exterminated that they don't have anyone to fill these roles or give them any advice or anything. So keep that in mind, okay? Even though so many of these top commanders have been exterminated by the United States and Israel, they're still not surrendering because they're literally insane. Literally, they're insane. And we Iranians, we've been warning you, like they will never, ever, ever surrender. Okay. They literally won't because they are an insane jihadi death cult. Okay. Like they basically worship martyrdom, right? They don't want to die, but they worship martyrdom. It's just, their weird jihadi death cult. So I think what was happening here is that the United States was testing out the Islamic regime to better understand their tactics, their strategy, how they operate, how they think, right? I mean, the American intel is the best in the world, right? So the Americans already know what the Islamic regime has in terms of like weapons and underground missile bases and all that stuff, right? Like that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to how are the Durkas going to operate or react, okay? And once I believe, now I could be wrong, but I believe that once the United States had sufficient knowledge and sufficient intelligence and sufficient understanding of how these Durkas operate strategically, they then, was like, okay, you know what, you guys want to, a ceasefire to negotiate a peace deal? Sure, let's go for that. Meanwhile, the entire time that this so-called MOU and the peace deal and like whatever, all these talks were happening, President Trump was still sending military assets to the Middle East and the Persian Gulf area. Okay. So the entire time that everyone was focusing on and freaking out over the negotiations, like, will it happen? Won't it happen? Whatever the case may be, President Trump was quietly sending weapons and military assets and personnel to the Middle East. Now, that's not to say that what we as Iranians did during that time wasn't important. It absolutely was. It absolutely was, because politics also plays an important role in this. And we as an Iranian nation, it was our responsibility during that time to continue raising awareness about the human rights violations in Iran, and to, of course, continue raising awareness about how we don't want the Islamic regime. We want President Trump and Israel to finish the job. Okay? That was a very important aspect of it politically. But on the military side, right, I think President Trump used that time to amp up what he had in the Middle East, because now, right, like in the last 11 days, the strikes that we are seeing against the Islamic regime, we've never seen anything like this before. And they are getting even worse. So, right? And that's the thing. Literally one day, President Trump was talking about, sure, we'll talk with them, if peace is possible, sure, why not? And President Trump was talking about deals and the MOU and negotiations and, all this stuff. He was talking about all of this until suddenly he wasn't talking about it anymore. Right? Literally within 24 hours, he went from, sure, if we want to talk, if they want to talk, we'll listen, to their scum, we're going to destroy them. Okay? So I just wanted to share this, because all the time that President Trump was just saying, oh, they want to talk, sure, and, all this back and forth and whatever, and, the Islamabad MOU and like all this stuff, right? And the other thing that was happening during this time that never stopped was Operation Economic Fury. And I kept on reminding all of you, I was like, guys, maybe the kinetic military action has paused for now. Although even during the ceasefire, there was like a lot of boom booms, but that's, again, it was like the weirdest ceasefire I've ever witnessed. But during all that time, the peace talks or whatever, Operation Economic Fury was still happening. And in fact, it was ramping up. And I was saying to you guys, follow the money. Because if President Trump really was thinking about having some sort of peace deal with the Islamic regime, why would Scott Bessent continue the sanctions? Why would Scott Bessent continue the economic pressure on the Islamic regime, on their allies, on their companies, all that stuff, right? Like if President Trump really wanted to sign a peace deal with the Islamic regime, wouldn't he also get rid of the economic sanctions? Right? Because a peace deal is supposed to be a peace deal, right? Like if you have peace with someone, then whatever sanctions you have are supposed to be lifted. But instead, the economic sanctions were increasing. And I was like, guys, like something is not adding up here, right? You can't have peace talks like he was literally sending JD Vance to have peace talks with the Islamic regime, while at the same time Scott Bessent was sanctioning that exact same Islamic regime. Okay? So that's what, for me, I was like, okay, like he's obviously buying time for something. And whenever President Trump, is finished whatever it is he needs to do, that's when things are going to immediately ramp up again. And that's exactly what's happened, right? Because President Trump was literally saying, you know what? Sure, we'll talk. Let's talk. We'll go to Geneva and whatever. And like, look, President Trump, guys, President Trump even made like this big deal about signing the MOU. Do you remember that? He made this big deal about signing the MOU. He had the Islamic regime convinced that he was backing off and that he was surrendering, right? He made a whole big fanfare, and then everyone was like freaking out. They're like, why is he doing this? And I was like, signing an MOU, an agreement to agree. Guys, remember, in contract law 101, an agreement to agree is not enforceable, okay? Like you can't have an agreement that you're going to agree on something in the future. That's not a thing in contract law, right? So President Trump making a big deal of like signing this MOU, that's like the equivalent of the United States giving false intel to the Islamic regime on February 27, right, to lure out Khamenei, and then Khamenei was sent to hell on February 28. And remember what President Trump even said about the MOU, right? Do you guys remember what he said about the MOU afterwards, right? I shared this video. Where was it? But it was in that interview, okay? It was that interview with like Salem or something. What was it? Hugh. It was Hugh something. Okay. I can't recall that interview now, but President Trump basically said in that interview with, I believe it was someone named Hewitt, I think. I want to find this because this is really important. Okay. Yeah, I think it was Hugh Hewitt. Yes, okay, it was this one. It was this one. Okay? It was this one. Let me see if I can find the part about the MOU. I should be able to find it. Okay, there we go. Transcript. MOU. Where is it? Here we go. This is the part. Okay, I found it. So guys, President Trump makes this big fanfare about, signing the MOU, and then listen to this part here. Let me go back a little bit.
A minimal structure to hold up the existing, not a structure to hold up another 10 stories of building. But the fact that the building wasn't even balanced, it's amazing that it didn't come down.
What was the MOU that your negotiators brought back? Was that a side saddle MOU? Was that built to fall apart?
It was built to test. It was a test. We didn't know. It didn't look. Memorandum of understanding when you're dealing with sleazebags don't mean much, and they don't mean much when you're dealing with honorable people too, because it's a memorandum of understanding. It doesn't mean much. And I said, why are we even? It's a standard tactic in the U.S. that you go to a memorandum of understanding and then you go to the deal. I said, just go to the deal first. But you know what? It was sort of a test. And they weren't there. They didn't honor the test. We had it. We had this deal settled numerous times. I said, watch. I guarantee, watch. And they never followed it.
A bunch of Israeli journalists are saying that you've undercut Bibi. You've thrown him under the bus. Have you?
No, not at all. No, I get along with him very well. Sometimes I disagree with him, and I let it be known, and I've been right. But no, I think he's good. Look, he's a wartime prime minister. He's done a good job. If I wasn't around, or if Bibi wasn't around, especially the combination, Israel would not exist today. We wouldn't have hit him with the B-2 bombers. They were going to have a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks. Had I not hit them with a nuclear, within 2 to 4 weeks, they would have had a nuclear weapon. And once they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it. And you wouldn't even have Israel around. No, Bibi's good.
Is there anyone in Israel better than him to do the job? Is there anyone better than Bibi?
Well, I don't know most of them. I know some of them, obviously, but I don't know most of them. But I think that Bibi and I have had a very good. If we weren't working together, if I had a weak person, a president or prime minister over in Israel, you have a president there too.
Right.
If we had somebody weak over there, Israel would not exist today.
So Hamas.
There you go. So, right, like President Trump literally says it was a test. It was a test, the MOU. And like I said, President Trump was making a big deal about the MOU and the peace talks and whatever, until all of a sudden he wasn't. And literally within 24 hours, it's like, the policy shift was from like night and day, right? And now the attacks are becoming even stronger. And guys, that's why I was telling you, I was like, guys, like, all the stuff about, that he was saying about maybe like Israel or, whatever, the MOU, the Islamic regime, right? There was a plan, and now you're seeing the plan, right? Like you're seeing the plan in action. So, who knows what's going to happen in the future? But based on all of this right now, things are not looking very good for the Islamic regime. And, on that note, I also want to go to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, because he also had some very interesting comments, not just about the Islamic regime, but about the Iranian people.
I mean, Iran's economy is in shambles. 300% inflation, particularly on life-sustaining goods. They have dwindling revenues to meet even their own payroll. They have food shortages. They have a drought, which we didn't cause. But they have a gasoline shortage and a fuel shortage. All these problems existed before all this began. They've just gotten worse. They will continue to get worse. And one of the reasons why Iran is in shambles, they're a rich country. Iran is a rich country. One of the reasons why Iran is in shambles is because every penny that this regime there gets, be it through sanctions relief or through the oil they're able to get out, they invested in Hezbollah. They invested in Hamas. They spend billions of dollars supporting militias in Iraq, Hezbollah, and Hamas. They should be spending billions of dollars supporting the people of Iran. They should be spending billions of dollars building the country. But instead, they use it on the launch of terrorism. So I think there's a growing awareness of that inside of Iran. And I think there's even a growing awareness of that among some of the people in their government. In fact, we have heard that from some of the people in their government. But obviously, there's a tension here, and we'll see how that plays out. I can't tell you how it's going to play out. It's up to them.
So yeah, it's difficult to hear him because he's standing in front of, an airplane. There's nothing I can do about that. However, basically what he says is Iran is a rich country. It is. One of the reasons why Iran is in shambles is because every penny that this regime ever gets, be it through sanctions relief or through the oil they're about to get out, they invest it in Hezbollah, they invest it in Hamas. They should be spending billions of dollars building the country, but instead they use it to sponsor terrorism. So, guys, this is why, even though Iran is a very rich country, 70% of the Iranian people live below the poverty line and can't even afford to buy more than like a dozen eggs a month. Okay, that's how poor the Iranian people are, even though Iran is a very, very rich country. Okay. The Islamic regime has been stealing all of the money. In fact, like the Muslim Arab occupiers have been using Iran as an ATM for their Islamic jihad. And the reason that the Islamic regime does not want to surrender is because they don't want to give up the cash cow. They don't want to give up the prize, right? Think of the Crusades, right? Remember what caused the Crusades? The reason that the Crusades happened in the first place was because the Muslim invaders were coming to Europe. And the only way to get rid of them was to fight them and get rid of them. And even now, today, like Muslims, some of them are still upset about the fact that they lost Spain. Because in their religion, in their ideology, once a land is conquered by Islam, then it forever remains to Islam and nothing can ever reclaim it again, right? So that's why many Muslims still call Spain Al-Andalus, right? Like that's their Durka name for Spain. It's Al-Andalus. And a lot of them still talk about how, they have to reclaim Al-Andalus for Allah. But when it comes to Iran, it's not just about the ideology, it's about the money, because Iran is a very rich country. The Islamic regime has made, has stolen billions of dollars, okay? Like Khamenei, Khabar Marrakesh, and his like garbage family, they're worth at least 80 billion, okay? So they're worth at least 80 billion. Many of the others are also literally worth billions, okay? And then of course, they spend billions on their Islamic jihad and their Islamic terrorism, Hamas, Hezbollah, all these people. So they don't want to give up that cash cow, okay? Because they view Iran as an ATM and they view us as just a nuisance, right? They view us as a nuisance and that's why they murder us, right? Like they have no hesitation murdering us because they want to continue stealing the money and using it for themselves. And Marco Rubio gets that, right? So this is why like we Iranians, like we don't like, no one's asking for like like, you know what I mean? Like it's not, like the Palestinians are always like, oh, like, we need money for this and that. Meanwhile, they're literally getting paid millions of dollars from like UNRWA and your taxpayer dollars. Yeah. Just wanted to point that out as well. So that's really important. And Marco Rubio gets that. So I want to share that with you to give you guys some context. Now, what is happening with the Durkas? So the Islamic regime is now, let me just pull this up here. Sorry, guys, too many tabs open and I'm just on my monitor. It's also getting a little bit late, so I'm going to have to call it a night soon. But don't worry, I will be back tomorrow. So the Islamic regime is actually sending um, reinforcements to the southern border that is close to Iraq and Kuwait. So on the map, remember, let's go. Okay. So if we go to our map of Iran, they're basically going here. Okay. So they're going here. Literally, like, what's this weird ad? Whatever. So they're going here. Okay. This is the southwestern border of, with and this is Iraq over here, and then of course this is Kuwait. So this is footage of a whole bunch of IRGC military equipment being sent to this part. Again, this is like the part where I'm from. This is part of Iran that I'm from. I was born in Ahvaz, so they're sending it all to Khuzestan. So let's watch this footage.
سيفجروننا حرب ويا امريكا مدرعات عشان تنزل علينا الصواريخ ابويا يمه خايبه والدهر طاقم شهر ولاد طاقم يا العمايل.
So I actually have no idea what the people filming this are saying because they're speaking Arabic. So these are Iranian Arabs. They live predominantly like in the rural areas of Ahvaz, right? So because they're mostly like farmers and nomads and whatever. So I have no idea what he's saying here, but I actually have a lot of family members who grew up with Arab neighbors, and they speak fluent Iraqi Arabic, I guess. So the dialect that Iranian Arabs speak, from my understanding, is very close to like Iraqi Arabic. So I'll see if I can get one of my contacts to translate this video, because many of them have learned how to speak Arabic, through their Arab neighbors in the region. Yeah, does anyone know what these tanks are, by the way? Like they're definitely not American tanks, but not quite sure. I don't know where it's from, but I don't think it's American, right? If anyone knows, let me know. Oh, that is American. What? Someone said that's a US M113? Really? It must be old then. Like it must be. So if that's the case, or is it US or is it Chinese or Russian? Guys, I don't think these are American, because the only American equipment that the Islamic regime would have would be like from prior to 1979, right? Like that would be things that the Shah bought back when the United States and Iran were allies. But yeah, definitely not the United States. Anyways, it could be Russian. I would probably say Russian or Chinese, right? But definitely not American. Because I don't think like they would even exist that long. So, I mean, probably like a knockoff. I mean, I would probably assume it's like a knockoff of like American tanks or something, right?
سيفجروننا حرب ويا امريكا مدرعات عشان تنزل علينا الصواريخ ابويا يمه خايبه والدار تطاقم ان شاء الله ولا تطاقم يا هذه العمايم ان شاء الله. حاليا بوليس اسرائيل اهواز بين 13 دباب وغير التعدن كان غير لون سود وهذنهم غير لون 13 دبابه وإذا تطاقم ان شاء الله. شوفوا هاي الدبابات عينوا هاي جادة بوليس راغبين جادة اهواز and دمشق.
Okay, so he said, guys, the only thing I caught there was Ahvaz and Andimishk. So Andimishk is like another city, right? Let's see. Okay, so if I had to guess, now don't quote me on this because I don't understand Arabic. However, if I had to guess based on what he said about Andimishk and where he had I literally just caught the word Andimishk and Ahvaz. I could be wrong. I'll confirm this for tomorrow, but maybe he's saying that these were spotted on the road from Andimishk to Ahvaz. And if that's what he's saying, then that's, of course, in line with the video description, which is footage of, the Islamic regime reinforcing the southern border has been caught. So there you go, guys. So that would be basically, this route and then on the way to wherever it is here. Now, why would the Islamic regime be sending military reinforcements, I guess, to the southern border here? Because they're probably thinking that the United States might do a land invasion, I guess, from this part here, okay? From maybe Kuwait to Khuzestan, I guess. And they probably think that's what's going to happen because not only does the United States have a base here, but remember, literally just a few days ago, the president of Iraq, I can never remember if it's prime minister or president, but whatever, I think it's the president. The president of Iraq visited President Trump in the White House, okay? And President Trump was, reaffirming the friendship and commitment between Iraq and the United States. So, it's a prime minister. Okay, so that I think is also making the Islamic regime prime minister. Okay, thank you guys. Sorry, I appreciate that. It's like almost 2 a.m. and I've had a long day, so I'll forget a few things here and there. But so the reinforcements are being sent here because of the fact that this meeting between President Trump and the Iraqi prime minister is making them very nervous, as well as, of course, the American base here in Kuwait. So this is what you're seeing. Let me play this one more time because, of course, we love exposing the Islamic regime, and we absolutely love sharing this intel with all of you and the rest of the world. So, yeah, as you can see, Iranians, no matter where they're from, which part of the country they're from, or what dialect they speak, right? Citizen journalists.
هسه يفجروننا حرب ويا امريكا مدرعات عشان تنزل علينا الصواريخ. ابويا يمه خايبه والدار تطاقم ان شاء الله ولا تطاقم يا هذه العمايم ان شاء الله. حاليا بوليس اسرائيل اهواز بين 13 دبابة وغير التعدن كان غير لون سود، وهذنهم غير لون. 13 دبابة ويدار طقم إن شاء الله. شوفوا هاي الدبابات، عينوا هاي جادة بوليس راغبين، جادة قهواز and دمشق.
So there you go. That's happening. Now, this is what I wanted to share. So if you recall, last night, I basically shared the news, the breaking news that the Islamic regime has attacked Tabriz. Okay. And if you need a quick reminder, okay, this is Tabriz. This is Tabriz. Oh, come on. Where's the image? Open image in new tab. Here we go. So Tabriz is right here. Okay. Tabriz is where the forehead of the kitty cat is. The American fleet is somewhere, assuming, I mean, I don't know, but I would assume they're, somewhere in the Arabian Sea. Okay. So, why is this attack by the Americans against the city of Tabriz, or not the city, but like the IRGC bases in Tabriz? Why is that so significant? Well, that's because by that attack on IRGC bases in Tabriz last night pretty much proves what President Trump has been saying, that the Islamic regime has no military left, right? Like the army is destroyed, the Navy is gone, the Air Force is gone, and they pretty much have no control over the airspace, right? Like occupied Iran's airspace is pretty much in control of the United States and Israel. So yesterday, right? And you can see this because the Islamic United States sent missiles. I don't know if it was missiles or jets or whatever, but they sent some sort of boom booms from here all the way to Tabriz, and they weren't intercepted whatsoever. The Islamic regime couldn't stop it. That is a very long distance, okay? Going back to our map of Iran over the United States, right? To put this in perspective in terms of the distance, okay? Let me show you what that would look like. So that would be the equivalent of, let's say, if the U.S. Army was in the Florida Keys, so like the Navy, the fleet. Let's say the fleet was in the Florida Keys, right? Somewhere here. And they were able to send boom booms to the border of South Dakota and I think Wyoming, right, guys? Sorry, I'm not American. I'm trying to remember. I think this was South Dakota, and I think this is Wyoming, right? And so this is the border between the two. So that's pretty much the distance, okay? Going from like the Bahamas or Florida Keys or whatever, from here all the way to here, they're able to, like, that's basically the distance, okay? That's the distance between the two spots, just to put that in perspective. So that's not a small distance, right? Like that's not an insignificant. That's like pretty much being able to send a boom boom like from one side of America, right into the middle without any sort of interception, okay? Which pretty much just proves that the United States is dominating, like completely dominating the skies over occupied Iran. Now, let me share some of the actual footage. So now we have, because remember, guys, everyone last night was asking, well, what have they hit? I mean, we don't know. The way that it works with the news cycle in occupied Iran is that, usually, first of all, we'll hear about it, live updates from Shin. And then, of course, within 24 to 48 hours, video footage comes out. So now here is the footage from the breaking news about the strikes on IRGC bases in Tabriz that I shared with all of you on last night's evening edition of The Goldie Show. And guys, again, just want to point out, right? Like, as you can see, right? Like the boom booms, they're not happening in the city, right? Like the boom booms are always happening like on the outskirts, right? And like it looks like this one is like over like some sort of hill or mountain or something. But do you see that incredibly bright burst? That looks like they hit something underground. Okay, maybe some sort of like missile compound or missile storage or something, right? Like that's not a small blast. Like that it's literally lighting up the night sky, okay? Literally lighting up the night sky. Look at this. Wow. There you go. So there's that one there. Let's see what it's saying. Yep, explosions in Tabriz. The date is wrong because it's not Tuesday, July 27. That's Tir. That's 29th of Tir, which coincides with July 19 or 20th, I believe, right? So there's one. And let me share the next one as well, because I have I have some new footage from the boom booms. And there's a reason that I share this, right? Because you're going to be hearing a lot about this in the news and the media, whatever. But I like sharing this because this is just, extra confirmation. Not that we need it, because, on this channel, we are patriots. So we are, pro Iran, we are pro USA, we are pro Israel, we are pro Shah. And we are anti-terrorist and anti-Durka. And of course, on this channel, we all know that the only ones who engage in war crimes and crimes against humanity are the Islamic regime, the Muslim Nazis. Oh yes, we are also absolutely we are pro-Ukraine as well. Yes, we are pro-Ukraine, Slava Ukraini. Yeah, the only ones who are, the ones engaging in war crimes and crimes against humanity are the Islamic regime. So here is again more indication of this, right? So let's watch this. This is more footage of the boom booms in Tabriz, and this is being shared on Telegram accounts. I wonder what that is. Wow. That whatever they hit, it's on fire. Wow. Like that is one hot fire. If you have any guesses as to what that might be, let me know. Now, guys, just a quick update from the Durkas, because the Islamic regime is now going after Scott Bessent. Okay, so the Islamic regime is denying that the economy is in shambles. Okay. Let's see. So the current exchange rate, okay? So apparently the current exchange rate, okay, the current exchange rate of the Iranian rial to $1 US is 1.4 million rials, is equivalent of $1 US. 1.4 million rials is the equivalent of $1 US. Yeah. In 1979, before the Islamic regime came to power and turned Iran into a 7th century Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law, the value of the Iranian rial to the US dollar was 70 to 1. So 70 rials equaled $1 US. And that was also, that gap was also decreasing because the Shah was building the economy up. Okay, he was building up the economy. And so as the rial increased in value, that gap between USD and the rial was closing in. So 47 years ago, before the Islamic regime came to power, the value of Iran's currency was pretty good, actually, 70 rials to $1 US. Today, it's 1.4 million rials to $1 US. And the Islamic regime is claiming, as they do, because they're literally a bunch of delusional 7th century inbred Muslim Nazis, they're now claiming that U.S. claims that Iran's economy is collapsing are delusional. So let's see what this Durka is saying. He's like, I'm genuinely surprised that U.S. Treasury. So, guys, literally, it's not. Now the Durkas are going after Scott Bessent, okay? Because, guys, the Durkas have finally clued in. They have finally clued in that it's not just about the economic actions. It's not just about the military actions. It's also about the economic actions, right? So it seems like they've finally woken up, and they're like, oh no, maybe we should, I don't know, do something about the economy. But anyways, let's see what he says. So this guy, like literally, this Durka jihadi is now like he's attacking our boy Scotty B. He's attacking our boy Scotty B. Right? So let's see what this Durka says. He says, I'm genuinely surprised that U.S. Secretary Treasury is on X every night or every few days, claiming that Iran's collapse will happen tomorrow. Okay, first of all, Scott Bessent never said that the collapse is going to happen tomorrow. He said it is collapsing. And then he says, I would really recommend that he get his information from reliable sources instead of presenting his own delusions on the economic collapse of Iran. He's like, no. Everything is under control. He's like, we do have some problems. We have never said we don't. No, guys, no. This is so funny. He says, we do have problems. We never said we don't. In fact, we have many problems, but it is not the case that we are without a plan or that we lack a strategy to strengthen the resilience of the economy, manage economic conditions, and ensure that people's essential needs are met. Yeah, okay, buddy. Guys, remember, I told you, if their lips are moving, they're lying. If their lips are moving, they're lying. This guy, okay, he is just as bad as the rest of them, right? Like, this is one of the funniest, like, like, this guy, this is literally like the Durka jihadi equivalent of this meme, okay? Like, this, what the video that I just shared with you is literally the Durka jihadi equivalent of this, okay? So now that I read the subtitles for you, I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to play the whole thing uninterrupted, because now you guys know what he's saying.
من واقعا تعجب میکنم این وزیر خزانداری آمریکا هر شب چند وقت یه بار یه توییت میزنه میگه فردا فروپاشی میشه ایران. یعنی من بهش توصیه میکنم واقعا اطلاعاتش از منابع درست بگیره، بعدم توهمات ذهنی خودش رو نیاره به عنوان فروپاشی اقتصادی رو. نه، همه چیز تحت کنترله. ما مشکل داریم، من نگفتم مشکل نداریم، مشکلاتمون هم خیلی زیاده، ولی این گونه نیست که ما بی برنامه باشیم و برای تاباوری اقتصاد برنامه نداشته باشیم و برای کنترل اقتصاد تأمین نیازهای مردم برنامه نداشته باشیم.
Okay, someone said that I need music for this. Okay, so I need to end my live stream anyways. I'm going to go to questions and comments. So before I do that, why don't I replay this, and per your request, I will add the music to this video.
واقعا تعجب میکنم این وزیر خزانداری آمریکا هر شب چند وقت یه بار یه توییت میزنه میگه فردا فروپاشی میشه ایران. یعنی من بهش توصیه میکنم واقعا اطلاعاتش از منابع درست بگیره، بعدم توهمات ذهنی خودش رو نیاره به عنوان فروپاشی اقتصادی. نه، همه چیز تحت کنترله. ما مشکل داریم، من البته مشکل نداریم، مشکلاتمون هم خیلی زیاده، ولی این گونه نیست که ما بی برنامه باشیم و برای تاباوری اقتصاد برنامه نداشته باشیم، برای کنترل اقتصاد تأمین نیازهای مردم برنامه نداشته باشیم. من واقعا تعجب میکنم.
There you go. That's yep. Do you see, like, guys, so this is what I mean when I say to you guys that, like, there is nothing positive about the Islamic regime. Like, there's literally not a single positive redeeming quality about the Islamic regime. They are scum, they are cancer, they are garbage, right? Like they're there is nothing good about them. There's nothing positive about them, okay? I mean, aside from the fact that they're literally murdering Iranians every single day, aside from the fact that they're, engaging in this jihad against the United States and murdering Americans every single day. Well, not every single day, but just a few days ago, they murdered at least 3 Americans, right? Putting all of that, like, putting aside the dangerous element of them, like the dangerous aspect, just look at this clown. Literally, look at this clown. The real, okay, the real has collapsed so much that $1 is the equivalent of 1.4 million reals. And yet this Durka idiot is out here and he's saying that, oh, everything is fine and Scott Bessent is lying and he's delusional, right? Like, do you see the utter insanity? There is literally not a single one of them that is normal or rational or logical. They are scum, they are a cancer, and they need to be eradicated. Right? But, maybe one day I'll tell you how I really feel about the Islamic regime, right? Okay, guys, let me go to your questions and comments, and then going to call it a night, but I will be back tomorrow for more updates, more analysis. But, just based on everything that I'm seeing so far, I do not see President Trump de-escalating anytime soon. Okay, I don't see that happening. And if I go to, let me just do a quick breaking news update on Shin. Let's see. Yeah, it's basically just been continued blasts in occupied Iran against IRGC targets. So, like I said, based on everything that I've seen so far, my analysis pretty much remains the same from last night. Nothing has changed, and that's that the strikes are going to escalate, the strikes are going to continue. And given the fact that the Islamic regime is now starting to talk about a potential land invasion from the United States, whether or not that's going to happen is irrelevant. The Islamic regime is freaking out and they are gearing up as well. And meanwhile, it seems like they're now going after Scott Bessent, which is absolutely hilarious. So there you go. But let me get to your questions and comments. Sarah sent, oh, right. So these gems, these are stickers. So I guess this is a sticker that says Unk Alert. I don't see the stickers, but I know in the live stream chat, you guys see them. So thank you, Sarah, for the sticker. Charlie became a new member. Welcome to Goldie's gang. PJ says, do you think they want land invasion because it will put, they want land invasion because it will put troops at risk, therefore get more protests about the war? I mean, that could be it. I mean, I don't know. All I can say is that the Islamic regime has received intel that the United States plans on engaging in a land invasion. Whether or not that intel is accurate, I don't know. It could be accurate. It could be inaccurate. I don't know. The reason that I don't know is because on February 27, the Islamic regime received American intel that Trump was not planning on attacking that weekend. And so, this was very reliable intel that Trump was not going to attack that weekend. So on February 28, Khamenei left his bunker and had a meeting with his top commanders. And as soon as he left his bunker, President Trump and Israel, they attacked, right? So the intel that Khamenei had received was purposely incorrect. So I don't know. But the guys, so this is where this is like the limit of my knowledge, because I'm not a military strategist. So I can't really comment on the military side of things. All I can say is that whatever's going on has the Islamic regime incredibly spooked, because now they're starting this whole narrative of, oh yeah, if they try to, do a land invasion, we're going to defeat them. Okay. So who knows what's going to happen? I think we're just going to have to wait and see. Wes sent a sticker. Thank you, Wes. Deborah, any more word on Iranian people being armed? Love from America. Thank you so much, Deborah. Love from wherever I am to you and all Americans. So no more word. So the last that we've heard was from that video of the Lord Bakhtiaris. That's my tribe in the southwestern part of Iran. They put out a video basically showing that they were armed and that they had started like a freedom militia group to fight the Islamic regime. But that was the last video. Haven't heard anything since then. Was sent a sunshine sticker and a marshmallow and donut holes and flowers. Thank you so much. And then Sergio, is it possible that deserters / Atish are rallying at Bandar Abbas and being given the latest equipment / weapons? Sounds like a plan if this is it. I mean, it could be. However, it would be incredibly difficult to rally around Bandar Abbas right now, because the Americans have been systematically destroying all of the transportation corridors to Bandar Abbas, because Bandar Abbas is one of the key, Bandar Abbas is like the key site when it comes to all of the naval operations, in the Persian Gulf and of course the Strait of Hormuz, right? So I don't know if that's a rallying point, but what I do know is that travel to Bandar Abbas is becoming increasingly difficult. Wes says, someone on here saying that America and Britain put the Ayatollahs in charge. I've heard this in other places recently. Do you know of anything specific, i.e. specific people in 1979, that would prove this theory? Yes, I actually do know someone specific, and his name is Jimmy Carter. And if you need proof of that, well, I can show you. Okay. So here is your proof that Jimmy Carter. So sorry, guys. Yeah, I accidentally pushed back on I pushed back on my browser, and I accidentally left my screen. So I disappeared for a moment, but I am back. So sorry, guys. Yeah, I literally disappeared myself. Remember, I'm on my laptop, so I'm not using my mouse. I don't have my normal setup. But here you go, guys. That was kind of funny. Okay, so here is the proof that Jimmy Carter and the Democrats, right? So this is the thing, was I specifically, I personally never say the Americans, because I make a distinction between Americans and Jimmy Carter and the Democrats. So yes, I do, and I always say that Jimmy Carter and the Democrats helped to put the Ayatollah in power. But I'm not referring to the Republicans, and I'm not referring to the American people. So here's the article, okay? US had extensive contact with Ayatollah Khomeini before Iran Revolution. Documents seen by BBC suggest Carter administration paved way for Khomeini to return to Iran by holding the army back from launching a military coup. So there you go. That's right. This is also something that you need to know, okay? In November of 1963, Khomeini sent a message to the US government through Haj Mirza Khalil, whatever, a professor in the theological faculty of Tehran University and an Iranian politician close to oppositionist religious groups. Khomeini, the Muslim Nazi pedophile founder of the Islamic regime, the one that, chants death to America, Khomeini explained that he was not opposed to American interests in Iran. On the contrary, he thought the American presence was necessary to counterbalance to Soviet and possibly British influence. Khomeini also explained his belief in close cooperation between Islam and other world religions, particularly Christendom. So, guys, what have we learned about the Muslim Nazis? What have we learned about the Muslim Nazis? If their lips are moving, they are lying. If their lips are moving, they are lying. Jimmy Carter, right? Like when Khomeini sent this back in 1963, right? The US presidents at the time, they looked at this and they were like, this guy's insane, right? Like they laughed it off. Jimmy Carter, being the idiot peanut farmer that he was like, oh, okay, like this Muslim pedophile who literally wrote a book on how to rape and sodomize infant girls. Oh, he's pinky promising me that, they're not gonna like have enmity with America, right? Okay, yeah, you know what? Let's trust the guy that literally looks like Satan on earth. Let's trust the guy that looks like Satan on earth, okay? Jimmy Carter said, let's trust the guy that literally looks like Satan reincarnated, okay? Because this guy is going to be a better ally for the United States than the Shah of Iran, who was literally defending and supporting the United States in the Middle East, okay? So going back to your super chat, so yes, I do know of very specific things and specific people in 1979. This is not a theory. This is a well-known fact. So it is not a theory that Jimmy Carter and the Democrats and the UK and France helped the Islamic regime come to power. It is a fact. Here is another fact, okay? So, another fact that demonstrates, right? Where is this garbage image? So here's another fact. France helped bring the Islamic regime to power because France was giving refuge to Khomeini, Khabar Margesh, and France also flew Khomeini back to Iran on Air France, right? So Khomeini's return, or not return, like Khomeini coming to Iran to literally occupy the country and turn it into an Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law, his travel arrangements were paid for by the French, right? There you go. There you go. So two very specific examples. I've had I've done a lot of like documentary watch parties on the history of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. So I would suggest that you definitely go and look at that playlist, watch those documentaries, because I get into the weeds. I get into the weeds of all of this, and I have hours and hours of these sorts of things. So yeah, definitely go take a look at all of that for sure. Okay, our next what's going on here? Okay, there we go. So our next super chat is from Minor Dine. Cold War era personnel carriers M113 and the tall one M577, both US, both were end of Vietnam tech. Okay. Thank you. I'll definitely look into that. Appreciate that, Minor Dine. Sergio Alzut, on your last live, could you elaborate more about Erdogan's and Khomeini's relationship? One is Shia and Sunni faction that are competing power help. Okay, so the way that you need to understand the Durkas is that the Durkas, right? They will fight one another, but they're all within the same league. Okay, so that league is Islam. Okay, so they can fight one another, but when it comes to the non-Muslims, when it comes to the infidels, okay, they will always unite against the infidel. So the Turkey and Erdogan, like the Islamic regime and the Muslim Brotherhood, sure, they might be Sunni and Shia, but they're literally at this point, because they're both engaging in jihad, right? They will always put aside their differences and support one another against the non-Muslims, against the infidels, against the Iranians, right? So that's how you have to look at this. Bros before infidels, I guess, right? So there you go. That's sort of what it is. Like the only difference between Shia Islam and Sunni Islam is that Shia Islam believes that one dead Arab Arab warlord succeeded their prophet, and then Sunni Islam believes that some other dead Arab warlord succeeded the prophet, right? So basically, like, the book is the same, the ideology is the same, like everything is the same. The only thing that's different is that they just can't agree on like which dead Arab warlord followed Muhammad, right? They basically fight over the succession line. That's pretty much the difference, okay? One of them thinks it was one dead Arab warlord. The other one thinks it's like the other dead Arab warlord. So now there's like factions or whatever. It's like Game of Durka. But when it comes to the infidel, right, the Americans, the Jews, the Christians, the Iranians, the non-Muslims, they will unite in order to fight against the non-Muslims, right? That's what it is. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. That's pretty much all you need to know about how they think and operate and behave. Wes sent a floating heart. Julia sent sparkles. Thank you. Laszlo, where can I buy $1 worth of real Javid Shah? Honestly, I don't even know. I don't even know where you could buy $1 worth of real, but I don't know. I guess like maybe a currency exchange. I don't know. I've never actually like looked into that because I don't have reals. Old Vet B sent a goat trophy. Thank you. I really need to look into these stickers and a trophy cake. Thank you. Thank you. I guess the people in the YouTube live chat see this, but I don't on because I'm like on a laptop, but they sound cool. And then our final comment and super chat is don't forget from Minor Died, don't forget the efforts of David Rockefeller to mislead Carter. Oh my gosh, like there's so much that we can dive into there. Absolutely. But yeah, Jimmy Carter, the peanut farmer, made a lot of mistakes. And we're all paying, we're all basically right now paying the price for Jimmy Carter's mistake, whether we're Iranian or American, or everyone else who's been impacted by the terrorism of the Islamic regime. We're all paying the price, and this is why we're all united against the Islamic regime. And I just want to thank all of you for being here and joining me on tonight's evening edition of the Goldie Show. And like I said, I'm on the road, so my schedule is kind of all over the place. But I promise that I will go live every day. Once for Iran Revolution Live, and of course once for the Goldie Show. And I will bring you the latest analysis and updates and sort of what's going on. And there you go. So I just want to thank all of you for joining me tonight. As always, I'm Goldie Gamari. You've been watching The Goldie Show, and now you know. I'll see all of you guys tomorrow.